Welcome back to the Loving Consciously podcast. This is episode 57, titled, What is Conscious Love? Today we are going to be doing an intro into defining what conscious love is, what conscious relating is, because love is one of the most universally recognized, talked about, and valued concepts, and yet I think we can all agree that most of humanity struggles to consistently embody it. And we were there once, and we have spent a very long decade learning how to love and learning how to define this. And so today we are going to get really deep into exploring what this is so that you can bring this into your life.
Yeah, as a society, we have inherited definitions of what love is, what love means in terms of showing love, embodying love. And so we're going to start to unpack what we were given and what the root of conscious love is so that we can embody it more fully.
Yeah, I think so much we talk about finding love, right? Like love is this thing that you find or that you feel or that you're seeking versus did anyone teach you how to love? And I remember when that question hit me the first time, like how profoundly I realized no, like we're taught how to do so many things and we are not taught how to love and how to relate. And here at Loving Consciously, we believe that this is something that we can learn and this is something that we practice. It's an active thing. And so I think a great starting point is to define like what is love or what do we mean by love? Because for most people, love is just a feeling. And the reality is feelings change, feelings fluctuate. You know, it's really easy to love someone as a feeling until you're triggered. And until, you know, you're in a moment of conflict or challenge in your relationships. And the thing about conscious love is that it doesn't depend on how you're feeling. Conscious love supersedes how we're feeling and fills all of the spaces, even when we may not be feeling it. It is a decision. It is a state of being, yes, but it is a practice. It is a choice. And it is something active that requires our intention and our devotion.
I really love what you framed there around love being a choice, because like you said, it can be this fleeting experience, right? We see that a lot in the honeymoon phase of love, or when you're in positive relationship with someone and there's no triggers and you're just in that really great friendship, in that really great familiarship, and there's nothing to catalyze growth. And then all of a sudden, you know, something more difficult comes up and those feelings of love seem like they disappear because the programs and the voices become much more loud in our experience. And so that doesn't mean that love disappears. Love is. We are that embodiment of love. It lives within us. And so we always have access to that feeling. We just have to choose to tune back in to that radio frequency when the static and the noise of the world gets louder.
Which is so beautiful because it takes us into the first step of the Loving Consciously framework, right? Awaken, heal, love. The first step is awareness. We have to bring awareness to what's driving us and to the places where we are actually in fear and separation and ego and all of the things of the self, right? So our wounds, our projections, our expectations, attachments. We talk a lot about patterns on this podcast. These are the things that drive us and keep us out of this state of conscious love, where in that state, it's really important to understand you can still emotionally and conceptually love someone, but are you being loving? Because when we are being driven by those things unconsciously, the answer is often no. And we see this still in our partnership all of the time because we are also perfectly imperfect. And so it's about creating awareness and space in your mind, in your life, in your relationships to choose how to respond rather than just unconsciously reacting. And then leaning on that very common, oh, well, I love them, but, you know, insert whatever comes after that.
Yeah. I really appreciate the importance of awareness, because we cannot change behaviors or programs that we're not aware of. The reason why they run our subconscious is because they are subconscious. We are not conscious of them. And when we become conscious of them, two things happen. One, we become aware of them in ourselves, which gives us the opportunity to repattern them. But two, it gives us the opportunity to be aware of them in others. And that is the catalyst for empathy. Because when we can see the patterns that exist within ourselves and learn to love them here, and then we choose that with ourselves, it unlocks the door to being able to choose love with others who are experiencing those same patterns that we were previously unaware of. And so when we say, nobody taught us how to love, it doesn't come from a place of people aren't trying their best. I really do believe that this world is doing the best that they can to love in the way that we've inherited. But what we're asking is to bring more conscious intention to love, to embody unconditional love, and begin to evolve the way that we love one another so that we can get back closer to that original blueprint of the way that God loves us.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. I love that you touched on intention there. A lot of times when we talk about this, people think that we're insinuating negative intent. And that there's a reason why this is unconscious, right? Because we are not aware of it. And so there are three kind of core things that we can look at here to help with this process. So number one is you can genuinely love someone and still be relating to them unconsciously. There is a difference between what is your truth of how you feel and what is your intention and what you are showing up as in the world. And we see this so often in the world, in our work, and especially in the spiritual space and Awakened Collective, is this, well, that wasn't my intention. And the reality is that conscious relating largely doesn't rely on your intention, right? I intend to be a being of love all of the time. That is the truth of my soul. And if I'm not being that being of love, constantly telling people, well, that wasn't my intention, or well, you misunderstood me or my heart or my intention, it's a form of bypassing. It's a form of dismissing how we're showing up in the world by saying, well, that's not how I wanted to show up. So that's the first most important one. The second one here is to remember that saying I love you doesn't mean that your behavior is loving, that you're being loving. You can feel that you love someone. We see this as often as the first one, right? People who are in conflict will say, well, of course I love them. I love them, but I'm not going to tolerate this, and so I'm going to remove them from my life. And saying I love you, it's at the core of conscious relating, it doesn't really mean much because words are just words, right? Words are empty without action behind them and without alignment behind them. And so I think deeply in the collective consciousness, there is a program running that saying I love you is love. And so we really want to tackle that one. And then the third one, which is something when I had this revelation, it just broke me open. And it's that much of the love we see in this world is actually fear masquerading as love. And that is very deep and could be its whole own masterclass, which we'll talk about a lot on this podcast as we go forward. But, control, possession, rescuing is a huge one, right? Enabling, attachment,
Martyrdom,
expectations, people pleasing. There are so many ways in which this shows up in the world. And it's really, really important that we understand that much of what we see in this world as love is actually fear. It wants to be love, but because that underlying fear hasn't been resolved, that is being expressed unconsciously. And the more and more we can start to recognize that, the more that we can do something about it.
I really love that you brought integrity into this unconsciously, right? Integrity is when your words and your actions are in alignment. And saying I love you.
Words, values, and actions. There's a third important part there.
Yes, absolutely. Saying I love you can carry the full weight and expression of love, but only if everything else is in integrity. And something that I've noticed, even in myself and the way that we've related, is when I'm out of integrity, the words I love you are empty. Because I can say I love you, but am I actually showing up and putting our relationship first? Am I actually putting the conscious intention to cultivate the garden and address unresolved energies and bring resolution and clarity and safety into the container. Because if all those other things are not true, yet I'm sitting here saying, I love you, I love you, I love you, then it's not real. It's a hope. I hope to love you. I want to love you. But the actions are not supporting that. And so that's a really, really important part of conscious relating, is making sure that everything is in that alignment. And what you talked about, fear masquerading as love as well. One of the biggest differences to me between unconscious and conscious love and just relating in general is the question of, is it of service or is it transactional? Because a lot of the relationships that we live in currently are transactional relationships. If you give me the thing that I need to feel loved, then I will give you the thing that you need to feel loved. But the moment that you take away that thing,
or give me something I don't want, or something that's triggering,
then I will lash out or pull away love or search for love external of the partnership, right? And so it becomes a very transactional experience, versus conscious love is the knowing that we are whole as we are, and we're meant to go into the relationship as whole beings that are being sustained by our Creator and our own self, taking a radical accountability for everything in the partnership. That's the other thing, is we have to take radical accountability. And when we don't, it leaves the door open for blame and projections and negative energies to come into a container.
Yeah, it's so important. And we'll get more into that in a minute when we talk about conscious relating. Before we do, though, it's really important to put a, disclaimer, for lack of a better words, in here, because a lot of times when we share things like this, it comes up against, we are, let me just be clear with it. We are not in any capacity insinuating that conscious love means staying in every relationship physically always, tolerating everything, no boundaries, etc., no disagreement, no conflict. We are advocates for discernment. We are advocates for conscious and loving and healthy boundaries. And we recognize that sometimes the loving choice is to have some form of separation in a partnership or a relationship. This is inviting us into something deeper beyond this binary thinking. And really there is this guiding question, right? Of what would love do here? Not what do I want here, or what feels comfortable for me here, or what would my ego do here, or what has society or media told me to do here, but truly what would love do here? And I think so often about Jesus, Yeshua, and that moment, in scripture on the cross where, the forgive them for they know not what they do. To me, that's my guiding light. I always go back to that moment, whether real or not, or whatever you believe. It's such a beautiful example of love embodied, right? Of in that moment, can you still love someone? And so as you navigate this, we are not advocating in any way for spiritual bypassing or ignorance or anything like that. We are simply advocating for an expansion of your capacity to hold a higher expression of love, where, the minute someone breaks your boundaries or does something that's really triggering and upset, you don't run away and exit the partnership. You dig deep and ask yourself, what would love do here? And so that's a great segue into talking about conscious relating, because the relationships, right? And as we say on the show all of the time, you are in a relationship with everything and everyone in all of creation. You're in a relationship with everything around you. And so this is the place where love becomes embodied. This is the place where we get to practice this and put this into action, so that it's no longer just this beautiful concept that we want to live by. Some really helpful trigger questions that you can use, and really that you can catch yourself using first and foremost, to maybe bring some awareness to places where you might be in unconscious love or unconscious relating. Questions like, am I getting what I need? Or am I happy? Or are they meeting my needs? Or are they doing something that's upsetting me, right? These are really good indication of questions that we might be drifting into places of unconscious relating and unconscious love. We can look at things like, what is this relationship revealing to me? What is this conflict revealing to me right now? Where can I take accountability for my part in this? Because everything requires two people. What is asking to be healed here? Because everything that we don't heal with one person will resurface with another. And I think a lot of people are seeing this right now, where they have just been revolving through relationships and friendships and business partnerships, and the same thing keeps happening. And after 2, 3, 4, 5 times, we can finally go, what role am I playing in this? And most importantly, how can I meet this with more love? How can I choose love here and meet this with consciousness, with intention to alchemize whatever is here and bring it back home to love?
This question of inquiry is a really, really important practice in conscious relating, because when we begin to make the shift from unconsciousness into consciousness and in all of our relationships, curiosity is such an important factor. We have to be like children and begin asking ourselves, is this me? Is this a pattern? Is this something that I learned? Is this something that I learned, watching movies about what relationships are, right? There's been so much external influence on what relating is, when in reality, relationships are their own microcosm that is incredibly unique. Every relationship is different because the sum of life experiences and lessons learned and passions and just everything that makes up all of our soul is different for each person. And then when you grab two unique individuals and bring them together in a unit, that becomes a unique expression. And so oftentimes we begin looking to other relationships or other experiences as ideals or as truth as to what a relationship should be. But the reality is that when we relate with something, it's something that unfolds organically as we begin to consciously and intentionally understand, what does love look like in this relationship for me?
Yeah. I love how you brought in that every relationship is unique, because there is this largely unconscious belief in relationships that, well, none of my other relationships have this, or none of my other relationships have ever done this thing. We hold this belief that relationships look like X, and we have this expectation, or really this box, this mold, right? And they are all unique. And most importantly, relationships are mirrors. They are going to mirror back to you all of the places where you are not aligned with conscious love. And if you can take one thing from this episode, and this is the most powerful belief that you can start to integrate and embody in your life, is really everything in the world. We're just talking about relationships here, but it's a mirror, and it's reflecting back to you anything that's unresolved, your patterns, your fears, your triggers. They don't just come up, right? They come up in relationship when they're triggered by someone else. And oftentimes the ego, the collective narrative, is to immediately blame and look at the other person and say, oh, well, you did this, or you made me feel this way, right? You have done something wrong. You need to change your behavior. We're just constantly pointing at the other person rather than seeking to see. And that doesn't mean the other person doesn't potentially do hurtful or unloving things, right? It means, though, that it's still pointing at something in us. Even if someone does something hurtful, right? It's still pointing at a part of us that's asking to be met with deeper love. It's still pointing at our reactions. And so truly, relationships are the most valuable thing you have in your life. Like liquid gold, they are revealing everything about you that you can't see, right? We cannot see what's in our unconscious and our subconscious. And so the other person is going to mirror that back to us. And if we can start to receive that as value and the value that it is, you will see your life, your embodiment, your love and your joy and your peace exponentially grow very quickly when you start to recognize this truth. And I think most importantly, from a consciousness perspective, like relationships are a vehicle for consciousness to move, right? They are not the source of something, but more specifically, like fulfillment, like, right? I'm not in this relationship to get my needs met. I'm in this relationship to serve love, to become more of a being of love, and to co-create more love together. It's like really beautiful. These are kind of the core tenets of our conscious partnership. I am not here to have my needs met. I am not here to serve myself, right? I'm here to serve you. I'm here to serve love, and I'm here to serve growth and seeking those things and bringing more of those things into the world.
And a really important thing to note there is, our needs being met by ourselves and our creator allows us to come purely from a place of service. And that doesn't mean that we don't also meet each other's needs. It just means that the way we relate isn't coming from that place where I need you to do this for me. It's, hey, I'm having a tough day, and because you are already full and meeting your own needs, you're then able to come and be with me when I'm not my most embodied self. And so it's a very fluid experience. It's a very fluid dance. And, you brought something up really important there around the projections of how when we're in relationship with something or someone and a trigger comes up, oftentimes as a defense mechanism, our ego, our subconscious will say, that thing was the thing that brought up this uncomfortable experience in me. That person is a problem, and we just need to make sure that we do everything that we can so that they don't do that thing ever again, right? And that can look like extreme verbal abuse. It can look like extreme neglect. It can look like physical abuse. It can, these are the extremes to which the ego will take these things because it feels unsafe and it feels threatened. And so when one person in a relationship, because we've been there, where both of us are relating unconsciously, in that darkness, in those fights, in that rejection of it was you, it was me, it was you, it was me.
Was it you? Was it me?
Right.
Is it something outside of us?
And truly in that blame experience. But it just takes one person to take accountability and say, you know what? Just in this one moment, this time, regardless of what's going on in this experience, I'm going to choose love. Even when everything in my being tells me they are the problem and I have every right to feel the way that I feel, I'm going to be the embodiment of unconditional love and grace, and I'm going to meet them in love. And it's a really powerful and polarizing experience that immediately has the potential to depolarize any negative energy. And it acts as an olive branch or an invitation for that other person to realize, well, I'm safe here. Oh, maybe I don't need to behave in this way. And you changing your behavior on how you react might actually be the strongest tool in our toolkit to help our partner move out of negative behavior rather than telling them where they're doing something wrong.
Yeah, I feel like that could be a whole masterclass and episode on its own, and we will get so deep into all of that in the Sanctuary, which will be launching soon. I want to bring in and introduce this core framework that we use, which we've talked about on the show before, but this awaken, heal, love, right? This is just such beautifully simple and profound words that we feel really encompass all three of these interconnected dimensions of conscious relating and conscious love and what it means to be fully human and perfectly imperfect. And it's really important to understand, like, these are not linear. It's not like you do this one and then you do this one and you do this one. They're all ebbing and flowing with each other. But generally speaking, awakening is becoming conscious of something, right? Becoming aware. And we do need to have awareness. And so in all of these aspects, awakening is generally the first step. Now, that doesn't mean people will try to love without having awareness, or will start their healing journey without having awareness of what they're healing. But generally speaking, when we work with people, we are really encouraging them to bring awareness to what unconscious patterns are driving you. Healing is meeting, integrating, transcending, alchemizing, transforming all in us that is not love, if we could put that very simply. And love, right? We hear this word, and I think a lot of times people think like, oh, that just means loving. No, this is the full depth and dimension of serving with love, relating with love, conscious relating with everything in all of creation. This is your relationship with yourself, with others, with the creator. And most importantly, it's how do we express that love in this world? And so this bucket is very deep, and something that we've been really pioneering and championing in this philosophy and this movement is that we feel that much of the world has been really deeply focused on awakening and healing. And while some have been focused on this love piece, there is a revolution asking to be had here. There is an evolution of love that is asking to be had here. You know, we are evolving, and so love is asking to evolve as well. And so that is why we are calling this conscious love, because there is an evolution that is happening here from the current version of love that we know. And so the most important part of this whole framework, right, and everything we're talking about here is bringing this into your life. We can have awareness, but it doesn't mean anything if we don't do something with it, right? As we said in the beginning, love is an active state. Love is an action as much as it is a feeling and a state of being. It is also doing. There are many ways to do this. That's not for this episode, but some questions that you can start to contemplate as you begin to let this sink into your consciousness and start to touch areas of your life is, you know, how am I showing up in my life? How do I respond when other people trigger me? How do I navigate disagreements or conflict or uncomfortable conversations? Do I navigate repair? Is there conscious and intentional repair and integration, or is it just kind of sweeping it under the rug and coming back to peace? How do I view and hold boundaries? Right? A lot of times we think boundaries are for other people to respect. And spoiler alert, conscious boundaries are entirely about ourselves. They are set and honored by us. And most importantly, you know, when I fall short of this, right? When I am a perfectly imperfect human who has all of this inherited programming and pain and patterning, how do I respond to that with myself and others, right? This is where grace and compassion and empathy come in, and where love becomes something that we truly embody and become and live this presence in all areas and facets of our lives, not just something we believe or intend or desire. Because while it is beautiful to believe in this, and it is beautiful to desire it, and it's beautiful to intend it, if we are not actively doing it and embodying it, something is missing. And that is the invitation of loving consciously at its highest, is an invitation into embodying the presence of conscious love in you and in your life.
Love is the building block of all of creation. I firmly believe that love can be found in everything in existence. The question is, are we attuning ourselves to be able to see the love in that thing? And when something appears to be not of love, oftentimes it's a large cry for love, because that individual, that experience of a collective, that, you know, whatever it may be, can't see that love within themselves. And so us as people on this path who are choosing conscious love, it's our responsibility to find that love and be it and mirror it, so that the people who have lost that connection to the organic state of conscious love have a pathway home. And as you begin to navigate this, one of the most powerful parables I feel that our brother Yeshua left us was that of turning the other cheek. And when someone hurts you, when someone slaps you across the face, while we may have that initial instinct to defend ourselves, to tell them why they were wrong, to list all the ways that they were unloving, or to walk away, how can we find it within ourselves to meet them with empathy and grace, and choose love, to turn our cheek back, to face them and say, I know you've struck me. I know hurt has happened between us, but I choose love with you. Let's find that love together.
Something so powerful just came through on that around, this is a beautiful example because you probably just heard that and a lot of you were like, well, wait a minute, they just hit me. Like, why would I turn and let them hit me on my other cheek? And that wasn't, I believe, the point he was trying to make. I believe the point and the essence here is turning the other cheek is an acknowledgement of, this isn't about me at all. Your pain is real. I'm not responsible for it, and your behavior is not loving. But whatever pain that person is experiencing is real. And we can see them for the truth of who they are. And we can see that pain for the truth of what it is and separate those things, separating the pain from the person, from the behavior, right? Those are three very distinct things. And meet that person with love. And that requires us putting ourselves aside, putting our own egos aside and our own wounds aside. And so that's a super deep thing to contemplate as you go into this week. We really want to close this out with an invitation. We have our live launch gathering for Loving Consciously, where we are unveiling everything we've been creating and how this very brief intro can deepen in your life and how we can serve as guides in that way. And so if you're seeing this before, you can register to that event at the link in the show notes. And if you're seeing this after, you will find a replay in the show notes. And so join us in this love revolution. This is only an introduction. We are going to go so deep into this in the coming months and years as we start this movement and we invite more love warriors into this family with us and into this space of creating conscious love and creating a world founded on that conscious love where we are actually doing something different and not awakening and healing and trying to love for decades and then still wondering why our relationships are so messy, because this is not God's intention for this world. And so we invite you to come along and join us. We thank you so much for being here with us today, and definitely hit follow and subscribe on this show because there's going to be a lot more where this came from.
Yes, and share this message of conscious love as far and as wide as possible, so that we can bring our brothers and sisters home, so that we can build, everybody's talking about building heaven on earth. Everybody's talking about building this new earth, about, the hopelessness that they see sometimes also on the flip side of it. But at the end of the day, we get to be that change. We get to be the ones that usher in this next phase of love and cultivate the world that we want to see in the world that we want to see. And so thank you for being part of this. Thank you for being a love warrior. I love that term because the battlefield has moved from the physical battlefield that we saw much more common. Not that there aren't wars still today, but the war has moved into our consciousness, into our spirit. And those of us who choose love, even when it's uncomfortable, you are a warrior. It is a difficult thing to do. And so thank you for choosing this path and for choosing love. We love you.
Yeah. Welcome home. And we will see you here next time.